What's the deepest betrayal a woman can face? Is it the sting of infidelity? Or is it the cold, hard realization that the man who swore to protect you and your unborn child would trade your future for a fleeting thrill? For Bianca, a soon-to-be mother, the ultimate betrayal wasn't just a secret affair. It was a 700-horsepower canary yellow symbol of her husband's deceit, a Lamborghini he bought for another woman, while Bianca, heavy with his child, was left stranded and waiting for a city bus. This isn't just a story about cheating. It's about the catastrophic collision of lies, luxury, and the fight for a life that was stolen in broad daylight. The July sun was a malevolent bully pressing down on the city of Vantage Bay with a thick, humid palm. Bianca shifted on the hard plastic of the bus stop bench, the vinyl sticking unpleasantly to the back of her thighs. Every movement was a negotiation now, a careful orchestration of her swollen belly and aching back. At 7 months pregnant, the world had become a landscape of small, sharp discomforts. The heat radiated in shimmering waves from the asphalt, and the air, thick with the scent of exhaust fumes and hot garbage, felt too heavy to breathe. Her phone, held loosely in her damp hand, flashed a low battery warning for the 3rd time. 2%. It mirrored her own energy levels. She stared at the last message from her husband, Ethan. "Hey babe, so sorry. Huge client issue just blew up. Can't break away. The Civic's still in the shop, so you'll have to grab the bus. I'll make it up to you. Big time. Love you." She'd read the words a dozen times in the last hour. A familiar pang of disappointment, one she'd been feeling more and more, lately settled in her chest. It wasn't the bus. She didn't mind the bus, not really. It was the accumulating weight of these last-minute cancellations, the client emergencies that always seemed to happen after hours. Their 2012 Honda Civic, her trusty, unglamorous chariot, had died last week. The mechanic, a grizzled man named Sal, had sucked his teeth and quoted a price that made her stomach clench. "It's the transmission, ma'am," he'd said, wiping grease from his hands onto an already filthy rag. "For a car this age, you're better off putting that money toward a down payment on something new." She and Ethan had argued about it that night. Or rather, she had tried to discuss it, armed with spreadsheets and budget projections for the baby's arrival, while Ethan had scrolled through his phone, his face illuminated by the cool blue light. "We can't afford a new car right now, Ethan," she'd said, her voice soft but firm. "Not with the baby coming. We have the crib, the stroller, the hospital bills. We need to be saving every penny." "Bianca, relax," he'd sighed, not looking up. "I'm about to close a massive deal. The commission will be huge. We'll get a new car, a safe one, an SUV, for the family." For the family. The words had been a balm, then a promise of the future she clung to. Now waiting at the bus stop, they felt hollow. The number 14 bus was running late. Of course it was. A bead of sweat traced a path from her temple down her cheek. She fanned herself with a crumpled grocery receipt from her purse, the only thing she could find. She felt a flutter deep inside her, the baby shifting. A small, secret comfort. "It's just us for now, little one," she thought. "Daddy's busy." She closed her eyes, trying to picture Ethan. Not the distracted, phone-obsessed version of recent months, but the Ethan she had married. The one who could make her laugh until she cried. The one who'd held her hand through 2 agonizing miscarriages, whispering, "We're a team. We'll get through this." Where was that man? He seemed to be fading, replaced by a stranger who spoke in business jargon and smelled faintly of expensive cologne she didn't recognize. The oppressive heat was making her dizzy. An elderly woman with a kind, wrinkled face and a shopping trolley full of vegetables sat down at the other end of the bench. "Terrible day to be waiting out here, dear," the woman said, her voice raspy but gentle. "Especially in your condition." Bianca managed a weak smile. "Tell me about it. The one day I need a car, and it picks today to die." "Men and their machines." The woman who introduced herself as Mrs. Gable chuckled. "My Walter, God rest his soul, spent more time under his Ford than he did in the house. But he was always there when I needed him. That's the important part." Bianca's smile tightened. That's the important part. A low, guttural roar sliced through the city's drone. It wasn't the sound of a bus. It was something else entirely. A noise so primal and powerful it made the ground seem to vibrate. Both Bianca and Mrs. Gable turned their heads. "15 miles away in the climate-controlled sanctuary of Vantage Bay, Lamborghini, the roar was a symphony. Listen to that engine." Marcus, the salesman, said, his voice slick with practiced reverence. He was a man made of sharp angles and expensive tailoring. His smile a blindingly white, predatory slash. "That's not just a car, Mr. Vance. That's a statement. That's a V12 6.5-liter masterpiece. It's a debiancation that you have arrived." Ethan Vance stood with his arms crossed, a smirk playing on his lips. He wore a fitted grey suit, no tie, the top 2 buttons of his crisp white shirt undone. He looked every bit the master of the universe he was pretending to be. Beside him a woman squealed her voice, a high-pitched counterpoint to the engine's bass. Her name was Isabella Rossi, and she was a work of art in her own right. 24 years old, with hair the color of midnight, and a body honed by Pilates and ambition. She was wrapped in a red dress that seemed to have been painted on. She clung to Ethan's arm, her perfectly manicured nails a vibrant crimson against his sleeve. "Oh, it's a beast," she cooed, pressing herself against him. "It's perfect. The yellow is so me." The car in question was a Lamborghini Aventador Ultimo, a final edition masterpiece of Italian engineering. Its color, a shade called Giallo Auge, was so bright it was almost violent. It sat under the showroom spotlights like a ferocious futuristic insect, all sharp lines and aggressive vents. "It certainly is a lot of yellow," Ethan said, a flicker of something doubt-guilt crossing his face, before he masked it with another confident smile. He caught his reflection in the polished showroom floor, the successful financial advisor, the beautiful woman on his arm, the supercar at his feet. This was the image he'd been chasing. This was the antidote to the suffocating domesticity that awaited him at home. The talk of diapers, budgets, and sensible sedans. "The Ultimo is the last of its kind," Marcus purred, circling the vehicle like a shark. "They aren't making naturally aspirated V12s anymore. This isn't just a purchase. It's an investment. A piece of history." Ethan's phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it. It was probably Bianca wondering where he was. He'd sent the text an hour ago, the lie flowing from his fingertips with practiced ease. Client issue. It was his go-to excuse, a magic phrase that ended all discussion. His real client was Isabella, an aspiring Instagram influencer he'd met at a rooftop bar 2 months ago. She was intoxicating, a whirlwind of parties, social media tags, and uninhibited adoration, With her, he wasn't just Ethan, the soon-to-be dad with a mortgage. He was the powerful, generous benefactor who could make her dreams come true. "So what do you think?" Isabella whispered, her lips close to his ear. "Can we take it home today?" The price tag was astronomical. $507,353, plus taxes and fees. It was more than the down payment on their house. To afford it, he hadn't just used the commission from his latest deal. He'd done something far more reckless. He'd liquidated a joint investment account, one he and Bianca had been building for 10 years. It was their nest egg, the fund she thought was untouchable, earmarked for their child's future education and emergencies. In his mind, he'd justified it. He would make the money back 10 times over with the next big deal. This was just a temporary reallocation of assets, a bridge loan to a better, more exciting life. "The paperwork is all ready for your signature," Marcus said, gesturing towards a glass-walled office. "We've already run your credit. Everything is in order. We can have the vehicle detailed and ready for you in an hour." "An hour?" Isabella pouted. "But I want to post about it now." "The lighting in here is perfect." She pulled out her phone, a rose gold iPhone with a diamond-encrusted case. She began snapping pictures, posing seductively against the yellow hood. "Hat new whip. Lambo life. #blessed. He loves me." Ethan watched her, a hollow feeling starting to form in his gut. He was paying for this. Not just the car, but this whole performance. He thought of Bianca, of her careful spreadsheets, and her gentle worrying. She was saving coupons for baby formula, while he was about to drop $500,000 on a toy for a woman who didn't even know his last name was Vance, not E. Another buzz from his pocket. He pulled out his phone. A picture message from Bianca. It was a selfie of her at the bus stop, her face looking tired, but with a forced, sweet smile. The caption read, "Adventures in public transport. Hope the client stuff is going well. Don't work too late. Baby and I miss you." XO. For a split second, the two worlds collided in his mind. The hot, dusty bus stop and the cold, pristine showroom. The selfless love in his wife's text and the transactional affection of the woman posing for selfies. The weight of his unborn child and the frivolous, screaming vanity of the yellow car. Guilt, sharp and acidic, rose in his throat. He could stop this. He could walk away right now. He could apologize to Marcus, tell Isabella it was a joke, go to the bus stop and take his pregnant wife home. He could confess, beg for forgiveness, and try to salvage the life they had built. "Baby." Isabella's voice cut through his thoughts. She was holding her phone out, framing him and the car in a selfie. "Smile. Our followers need to see the handsome man who spoils me." He looked at her flawless, expectant face. He looked at the car, a monument to the man he desperately wanted to be. And then he looked at his phone at the picture of his wife. With a shaking thumb, he deleted the message. He turned to Marcus, the decision made. "Let's sign the papers." He forced a smile for Isabella's camera, the flash momentarily blinding him. In that flash, he sealed his fate, purchasing not just a car, but the ruin of his own life. The bus finally arrived with a hydraulic hiss, groaning to a halt in front of the stop. The doors folded open, revealing a tired-looking driver and a scattering of passengers bathed in the sickly yellow interior light. Bianca pushed herself up from the bench, her body protesting with a series of dull aches. She gave a small, grateful wave to Mrs. Gable, who nodded back sympathetically. The ride home was a blur of swaying motion and the city's evening lights smearing past the grimy windows. Bianca leaned her head against the cool glass, her phone now completely dead. The lack of connection made her feel even more isolated. She was untethered, floating in a sea of strangers, while her husband was off dealing with his big client. By the time she reached their street, a quiet, tree-lined lane of modest but well-kept suburban homes, darkness had fully settled. She trudged up the walkway to their small, two-story house, the one they had poured all their savings into. The porch light was off. Ethan hadn't even beaten her home. Inside the house was silent and still. It felt empty, amplifying her own loneliness. She dropped her purse on the entryway table, the keys clattering loudly in the quiet. She went straight to the kitchen, chugging a glass of water before plugging her phone into the wall charger. While it powered back on, she moved through the downstairs rooms, her nesting instinct kicking in. She straightened a crooked picture frame, a photo of her and Ethan on their wedding day, both of them beaming and impossibly young. She picked up one of his stray socks from the living room floor and put it in the laundry hamper. These small acts of care, once a source of comfort, now felt like tending to a museum of a life that was slipping away. Her phone chimed to life, and a cascade of notifications flooded the screen. Emails, texts from her sister Amelia, and a dozen social media alerts. She swiped through them, her thumb moving with practiced habit. She opened Instagram, her mind seeking a moment of mindless distraction. She scrolled past photos of friends' dinners, a cousin's new puppy, a sponsored ad for maternity leggings. And then she saw it. It wasn't on her main feed. It was a story reposted by a girl she'd gone to high school with, someone she barely knew, who followed a citywide gossip account. The account's name was Vantage Bay Views, and it specialized in spotting local celebrities and the ultra-wealthy. The video was short, just 15 seconds, and shot from across the street from the Lamborghini dealership. The quality was grainy, but the subject was unmistakable. A canary yellow supercar, so vivid it seemed to glow. A man in a sharp suit was holding the passenger door open for a stunning woman in a tight red dress. The woman slid into the car, blowing a kiss to the person filming before the man closed the door. He then walked around to the driver's side, and even from a distance, even in the shaky footage, Bianca recognized his walk. The confident stride, the set of his shoulders. It was Ethan. The caption on the video read, "Looks like Vantage Bay Financier." Ethan Vance just dropped a cool $500,000 on a new Lambo for influencer Izzy Rossi. Some guys have all the luck. Lamborghini, Vantage Bay, high life. Bianca's breath caught in her throat. Her heart began to pound, a frantic, painful thrumming against her ribs. No, it couldn't be. A mistake. A different Ethan Vance. It had to be. Her hands were trembling as she tapped on the tag for Izzy Rossi. Her profile was public. The latest post from 2 hours ago was a high-resolution, professionally lit selfie. Isabella Rossi was leaning against the hood of the yellow Lamborghini, her expression a perfect pout. The caption was a string of hashtags, #new whip, Lambo life, #blessed, #he loves me, spoiled. Bianca's world tilted on its axis. She zoomed in on the photo. In the reflection of the showroom's gleaming window behind Isabella, she could just make out a distorted figure. A man in a grey suit, holding up a phone, smiling. The same grey suit Ethan had worn to work that morning. The air left her lungs in a whoosh, as if she'd been punched. The phone slipped from her fingers, clattering onto the hardwood floor. She gripped the edge of the kitchen counter, her knuckles turning white. The linoleum felt suddenly cold beneath her bare feet. Big client issue. I'll make it up to you. Big time. We can't afford a new car right now. I'm about to close a massive deal. We'll get a new car, a safe one, an SUV. For the family. The lies, one after another, echoed in her mind, each one a fresh stab of betrayal. This wasn't an SUV. This wasn't for the family. This was a monument to his deceit bought for another woman. A woman half her age, with a perfect body and a public profile that broadcasted Bianca's humiliation to the world. And he had paid for it, while his pregnant wife, the mother of his child, was sitting in the suffocating heat at a bus stop because their shared car was too expensive to fix. A wave of nausea washed over her. She stumbled to the sink, her body heaving, but nothing came up. There was only the dry, racking agony of a betrayal so profound it felt physical. The baby kicked a sharp, sudden jab, as if it could sense its mother's distress. Bianca wrapped her arms around her belly, a primal protective instinct taking over. "It's okay," she whispered, her voice a choked, broken thing. "It's okay, little one. Mummy's here." She didn't know how long she stood there, frozen in the silent kitchen, the digital proof of her husband's treachery glowing on the floor a few feet away. 10 minutes. An hour. Time had lost all meaning. There was only the before, the naive, trusting woman who had waited for the bus, and the after this, shattered person standing in the wreckage of her life. Then she heard it. The sound of a key in the front door. Her head snapped up. A surge of adrenaline, cold and sharp, cut through the shock. He was home. He was walking into this house, their house, expecting to find his dutiful, pregnant wife waiting for him. Ethan stepped into the entryway, humming softly to himself. He was carrying a bouquet of carnations from the grocery store, their cheap, cloying scent filling the air. He saw her standing in the kitchen, her face pale and streaked with tears. "Bianca, hey, what's wrong?" he asked, his own smile faltering. He immediately went into damage control mode. "Babe, I am so sorry about today. This client, Mr. Sterling, he was just relentless. You know how it is. I brought you these to say I'm sorry." He held out the flowers. Bianca just stared at them. Carnations. The cheapest flowers in the store. A pathetic, insulting gesture. She said nothing. Her silence was more unnerving to him than shouting would have been. "Bianca, talk to me. Are you feeling okay? Is it the baby?" He took a step towards her, his expression a mask of feigned concern. Finally, she found her voice. It was quiet, but it was as hard and sharp as a shard of glass. "Who is Izzy Rossi?" Ethan froze. The name hung in the air between them, dense and damning. He blinked, his mind racing, searching for a plausible lie. He had prepared for tears, for anger, about being left at the bus stop. He had not prepared for this. I don't know what you're talking about," he stammered, his practiced charm crumbling. "Don't you—" Bianca's voice rose, gaining strength. "She's an influencer. She's beautiful. And apparently she's the proud new owner of a yellow Lamborghini. A gift, it seems, from a financier named Ethan Vance." She gestured with her chin towards the floor. "Her 300,000 followers are all so happy for her. You should see the comments." Ethan's face went white. He saw his phone on the floor, the screen still lit up with Isabella's smug, smiling face. He was caught, utterly and completely caught. The time for lies was over. Now came the gaslighting. "Bianca, it's not what it looks like," he said, his voice dropping, trying to sound reasonable, soothing. "Isabella is a client, a very important high net worth client. The car it's a business expense. It's a lease. It's complicated a way to manage assets for tax purposes. You wouldn't understand. A business expense." Bianca let out a laugh, a bitter, broken sound. You bought another woman a $500,000 supercar as a business expense. The same day you told me we couldn't afford to fix our Honda. You're being hysterical. He snapped, his fear turning to anger. It's the hormones. You're pregnant and you're overreacting. It's a car, for God's sake. A car, she shrieked, the word tearing from her throat. This isn't about the car, Ethan. This is about you lying to me. This is about you leaving me, your pregnant wife, stranded at a bus stop while you were out buying gifts for your client. She spat the word like it was poison. Keep your voice down, he hissed, glancing nervously towards the windows. The neighbors will hear. I don't care about the neighbors. Bianca was sobbing now, great ragged breaths. I care about the fact that my husband, the man who is supposed to be my partner, is living a completely different life behind my back. What else have you lied about, Ethan? What else? He had no answer. He just stood there, clutching the ridiculous bouquet of carnations, the scent of his betrayal filling the home he had just desecrated. He looked at his wife, her body swollen with their child, her face a mask of unimaginable pain, and he felt a flicker of the truth. This wasn't a mistake he could fix with flowers or a smooth explanation. This was an extinction-level event, and he had been the meteor. Bianca wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, a sudden chilling calm settling over her. Get out, she said, her voice low and steady. What? Get out of my house. Bianca, be reasonable. This is my house too. We can talk this through in the morning when you've calmed down. There is no we anymore, she said, the finality in her tone sending a genuine chill down his spine. You made your choice today at that dealership. Now I'm making mine. Take your flowers and get out. She turned her back on him, wrapping her arms around her belly again, shielding her child from the man who was now a stranger. After a moment of stunned silence, Ethan dropped the carnations on the floor, turned and walked out, closing the door softly behind him. The click of the latch echoed in the silent house, the sound of a life breaking in two. The first phone call Bianca made was into a void of her own tears. She dialed her sister's number by muscle memory, her thumb swiping clumsily across the screen. Amelia answered on the second ring, her voice a bright, cheerful sound from a world that no longer existed. Hey, stranger, I was just about to text you. How are you feeling? Did the baby enjoy his first bus ride? Bianca opened her mouth, intending to form words, but what emerged was a raw, primal sound of anguish, a sob torn from the deepest part of her. The carefully constructed dam of her composure didn't just break. It detonated, and the full, horrifying weight of the day's betrayal came roaring out in a torrent of incoherent grief. Whoa, Bianca. What is it? What's wrong? Amelia's voice instantly shed its lightness, becoming sharp with alarm. Bianca, talk to me. Are you hurt? Is it the baby? Bianca gasped, trying to pull in enough air to speak. Ethan, there's a car, another woman. The words were jagged fragments, pieces of a nightmare she couldn't articulate. Through hiccuping breaths and shuddering sobs, the story tumbled out a broken mosaic of the bus stop, the damning Instagram feed, the hollow lies about a client, and the pathetic grocery store carnations now wilting on the kitchen floor like a cheap funeral arrangement for her marriage. There was a beat of stunned, frigid silence on the other end of the line. When Amelia spoke again, her voice was unrecognizable. All the warmth had been burned out of it, leaving behind something cold and hard as forged steel. Where is he now? I told him to get out, Bianca stammered. He left. Good. Amelia said the word, a sharp, definitive crackle. Lock the doors, both the deadbolt and the chain. I'm on my way. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Do not answer the phone if he calls. Don't look out the windows. Just sit tight. I'm coming. The line went dead. Bianca, moving like an automaton, did exactly as she was told. She went to the front door, her hand trembling as she slid the heavy deadbolt into place. The solid thunk echoed in the cavernous silence of the house. She fumbled with the chain, hooking it into its slot. The gestures felt both monumental and hopelessly inadequate. She was locking him out, but the poison was already inside, coursing through her veins, staining every memory she had ever held dear. The 20 minutes she waited for Amelia were an eternity. The house, once her sanctuary, now felt like a crime scene. Every framed photo of them smiling together was a lie. Every piece of furniture they'd picked out was a stage prop for a play whose script she never knew. True to her word, Amelia arrived in 19 minutes, using the emergency key Bianca had given her years ago. She didn't knock. She burst in a miniature hurricane of protective fury. Her eyes immediately took in the scene, her sister pale and shattered, standing in the middle of the living room, and the scattered carnations on the floor. With a sound of pure disgust, Amelia kicked one of the flower heads aside and enveloped Bianca in a fierce hug that felt like it could hold her broken pieces together. "I'm going to kill him," Amelia whispered into her hair, her voice trembling with rage. "Legally, I know I can't, but I will find a way to dismantle that man's life until he regrets the day he was born." For a long while, she just held Bianca, letting her cry, until the racking sobs subsided into exhausted, shaky breaths. Then she gently led her sister to the kitchen table, her practical nature taking over. She brewed a cup of chamomile tea, her brisk, purposeful actions a soothing balm on Bianca's frayed nerves. "Okay," Amelia said finally, her voice low and serious as she sat down across from her. "The crying part is over for now. We can fall apart later. Right now we get smart. You said he claimed she was a client and the car was a business expense." Bianca nodded numbly, the warm mug a fragile anchor in the swirling vortex of her thoughts. "That's his narrative." Amelia reasoned, her mind already working, piecing together a strategy. "He's going to paint you as the hysterical, hormonal, pregnant wife who flies off the handle because she doesn't understand his high-powered world. We have to prove that's a lie. We have to follow the money. We need to find out where the funds for that monstrosity really came from." A new kind of fear began to creep in a chill that had nothing to do with heartbreak and everything to do with a cold, practical dread. Money. Their finances. Ethan handled it all. He was the expert, the financial advisor. She had trusted him implicitly, content to look at the upward trending graphs he would show her every few months. "We're doing great, babe," he'd always say with a reassuring smile. "Don't you worry about a thing." Now every one of those smiles seemed like a smirk. He has all the passwords," Bianca confessed, her voice barely a whisper. The admission felt shameful, like admitting to a profound and willful ignorance. "The online banking, the investment accounts. I don't know any of them. I never thought I'd need to." "He's not as smart as he thinks he is," Amelia said grimly, pulling Bianca's laptop from its bag. "Men like Ethan are arrogant, and arrogance breeds sloppiness." The hunt began. The first portal was their main joint checking account. Staring at the login screen, Bianca felt a fresh wave of humiliation. Amelia started suggesting passwords. Their anniversary, gnome. Her birthday, num. The baby's due date, access denied. Think of something cheesy, Amelia prompted. Something he would have set up back when he was still pretending to be a good husband. Bianca's mind, numb with pain, dredged up a memory. An early anniversary, him setting up the account. With trembling fingers, she typed Bianca Ethan Forever 1. Access granted. The irony was so bitter, it felt like swallowing acid. The account summary loaded. Bianca squinted, certain her tear-blurred eyes were deceiving her. The balance was just over $4,000. It should have been 10 times that. "No, that can't be right," she murmured, scrolling frantically. "The mortgage is due next week. My freelance check hasn't cleared. Where is it?" Amelia leaned closer, her sharp eyes scanning the transaction history. "There," she said, her finger jabbing at the screen. "Look, 3 days ago, wire transfer, $50,000. The destination was an account at a different bank, an account with a number that meant nothing to Bianca. The first layer of the deception had been peeled back. The nest egg was next. Ethan managed their investments through a slick professional portal. Bianca remembered him setting the password, laughing that it was something she'd never guess. Her heart sank. This would be impossible. "What does he love more than you?" Amelia asked, her voice devoid of kindness, needing to be cruel to be effective. Bianca flinched. The answer was sickeningly obvious. She thought of the bright yellow beast from the Instagram post. Tentatively, she typed in the name of the car, followed by a random sequence of numbers he liked. Aventador 789. The portal opened. The screen loaded, displaying their portfolio summary in a large, cheerful font. The number sat there, stark and absolute. 8 tals, 714 tals, 223. Bianca stopped breathing. Her mind simply refused to process the information. It was a glitch, a typo, a catastrophic error. A week ago, she knew for a fact that account had held over $420,000. It was the sum of a decade of their disciplined saving of her freelance income, of his bonuses. It was their future, their child's college education, their safety net. With a hand that felt disconnected from her body, she clicked on the activity log. There was only one recent transaction. Dated 4 days prior, it was brutally simple. Full liquidation of assets, transfer of proceeds. The money had been vaporized, funneled into the same unknown account as the $50,000 from their checking. "Oh my God," Bianca breathed, the sound swallowed by the silence of the room. The laptop screen seemed to pulse with the magnitude of the theft. "It's gone, Amelia. He took it all. It's all gone." He hadn't just used a commission. He had gutted their entire life savings and set it on fire to warm himself next to another woman. The betrayal was no longer just a stab to the heart. It was a financial annihilation. Amelia's face was a pale mask of fury. "This isn't just cheating, Bianca," she whispered. "This is grand larceny. This is fraud." But they weren't at the bottom yet. Fueled by a new horrifying clarity, they kept digging. In the digital depths of Ethan's home office computer, they sifted through folders, a grim archaeological dig into the ruins of her marriage. They found a subfolder labeled Business Ventures. Inside was a loan document dated 6 months prior for $100,000. He had forged her signature to secure it. The credit card statements linked to that loan account were a detailed map of his affair. A ski trip to Aspen. She knew nothing about dinners at restaurants he'd claimed were too expensive, receipts from designer boutiques where he'd bought another woman clothes while telling Bianca they needed to cut back. Each charge was another lie, another betrayal. Bianca felt a wave of nausea so profound she had to grip the edge of the table. But the final soul-crushing blow was yet to come. Buried deep in a folder labeled Property Docs, nestled among legitimate files, was a scan of an official-looking letter from their mortgage lender. It was a notice of default. Ethan had secretly taken out a second mortgage on their house 3 months ago, borrowing against their equity to the tune of $150,000. Her signature on the application was another clumsy, obvious forgery. He hadn't made a single payment. The bank was initiating foreclosure proceedings. They were going to lose their home. The laptop slipped from Bianca's grasp, clattering onto the table. The room began to tilt, the walls seeming to close in. She slid from her chair to the floor, her body overwhelmed, unable to process the sheer totality of the destruction. She was pregnant, on the verge of being jobless, and now homeless. He hadn't just left her. He had systematically booby-trapped their entire life, setting timers on financial bombs, and walking away just before they detonated, leaving her alone in the blast zone. Bianca, breathe. Amelia was on the floor beside her, her voice sharp with fear, rubbing her back in firm circles. Look at me. You have to breathe. Think about the baby. Deep breaths. Now! Bianca squeezed her eyes shut, trying to anchor herself to her sister's voice. The baby, her child, the one innocent soul in all of this. And in that terrifying darkness, a new feeling began to stir. It started as a tiny hot spark deep within the cold, heavy dread. It was rage, a pure, protective, primal rage that she had never known she was capable of feeling. It was the fury of a mother protecting her young. It burned through the shock, cauterized the weeping wounds of her heart, and forged her sorrow into something hard, sharp, and unbreakable. Her sobbing stopped. Her breathing, ragged and shallow, began to deepen to steady. She opened her eyes, and the look in them made Amelia recoil slightly. The shattered victim was gone. In her place was a woman made of ice and fire. She pushed herself up, using the table for support, and stood on shaking legs. Her voice, when she spoke, was devoid of any tremor. It was the calm at the center of a hurricane. "Find me a lawyer, Amelia," she commanded. "I don't want a mediator. I don't want a conscious uncoupler. I want the most ruthless, blood-sucking divorce attorney in this city. The kind of lawyer that other lawyers have nightmares about." She looked around the room, at the home he had tried to steal from her, and her gaze was terrifyingly clear. He wanted a statement car, fine. I'm going to make a statement of my own. He may have bought that Lamborghini, but I am going to make sure it's the last thing he ever owns. The elevator ride to the 30th floor was a silent, stomach-lurching ascent. Bianca stared at her reflection in the mirrored walls, barely recognizing the woman who stared back. Her face was puffy, her eyes shadowed with sleeplessness, but beneath the exhaustion was a brittle tension, a wire pulled taut. Beside her, Amelia projected an aura of defiant confidence, her hand resting reassuringly on the small of Bianca's back. The elevator doors opened onto a hushed, cathedral-like space. This was the office of Diana Albright, a place where marriages came to be dismantled with surgical precision. The air inside was cool and smelled faintly of lemon oil and expensive paper. Everything was glass chrome and shades of grey. A landscape of calculated power that stood in stark contrast to the messy, emotional ruin of Bianca's life. They were led into a corner office with a panoramic view of Vantage Bay, the city sprawling below like a map. For a moment, Bianca felt a wave of vertigo, a feeling of being utterly small and insignificant. Then Diana Albright rose to greet them. She was a woman who seemed carved from granite and intellect, dressed in a flawlessly tailored charcoal suit with sharp silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. She radiated an energy that was not comforting, but fortifying. There was no pity in her gaze, only assessment. She listened to Bianca's story. Her hands steepled her expression, a mask of professional neutrality. Bianca's voice, which had started as a fragile whisper, grew steadier as she spoke, bolstered by the portfolio of evidence Amelia had organized, a thick, damning Bible of Ethan's deceit. When Bianca finally fell silent, the only sound was the distant hum of the city. Ms. Albright took a slow, deliberate breath. "Mr. Vance has not merely been unfaithful, Mrs. Vance." She began, her voice as crisp and unyielding as the view from her window. "Infidelity is a personal tragedy. What he has done is a calculated campaign of economic warfare against his own family. He has engaged in a pattern of egregious financial misconduct, including asset dissipation, fraudulent conveyance, and forgery." She tapped a manicured finger on the forged loan application. "He didn't just break your marriage vows, he broke art and federal laws. This is our leverage. It is immense." A flicker of something that felt dangerously like hope ignited in Bianca's chest. "What does that mean for me, for the baby?" "It means we don't just file for divorce and divide what's left," Ms. Albright stated, leaning forward. Her eyes, which had been coolly analytical, now held a glint of predatory fire. "We launch an attack. First thing tomorrow morning, I will be in front of a judge, petitioning for an immediate ex parte restraining order. Ex parte means he won't be there to argue. We present our evidence of his fraud, and we request a complete freeze on all known assets. His personal accounts, his business accounts, every credit card, and that ridiculous vehicle." She picked up the printout of Isabella's Instagram post, holding it between two fingers, as if it were a distasteful insect. "The girlfriend, Ms. Rossi, is currently flaunting a fraudulently acquired asset. The moment the judge signs the order, that car legally belongs to the marital estate pending dissolution. We will be naming her in the suit as a party to the fraudulent conveyance and dispatching a repossession team to collect the asset. I imagine that will make for a rather compelling Instagram story." The image was so vivid, so just, that a raw, guttural laugh escaped Bianca's lips before she could stifle it. It felt good. "But Ethan's a financial advisor." Bianca pressed, the fear still coiling in her gut. "He's smart. He knows how to hide money. What if he's already moved it all to some offshore account we'll never find? People like your husband are masters of the 3 C's: conceit, confidence, and carelessness," Ms. Albright countered smoothly. "He believes he is untouchable, that he's smarter than you, me, and the entire financial system. That arrogance is his Achilles heel. He won't anticipate this level of forensic accounting, this speed, this aggression. We will subpoena his employer, his phone records, every bank he's ever dealt with. We will find the money, Mrs. Vance. Men like Ethan always leave a trail." The last vestiges of the frightened, heartbroken wife began to recede, burned away by the cold, clear flame of strategy. "I want the house," Bianca stated, her voice resonating with a newfound firmness. "I don't care as much about the money. I want to bring my baby home to this house. It's the only real home I have." For the first time, Diana Albright's expression softened, almost imperceptibly. "The house is in jeopardy because of the second mortgage. Proving that forgery and having the lien nullified will be our primary battle. It will be a fight. But you have a powerful, unimpeachable narrative. A pregnant woman whose husband plundered their life savings to purchase a supercar for his mistress while leaving his wife at a bus stop. Judges, believe it or not, are human. The days that followed were a blur of intense, focused activity. Bianca's grief was packed away, replaced by a cold, driving purpose. She became a fixture in Ms. Albright's sterile offices, a warrior in maternity wear. She spent hours hunched over her laptop, cross-referencing statements and timelines her graphic designer's eye for detail now applied to uncovering the architecture of her husband's lies. Amelia was her quartermaster, ensuring she ate, keeping her hydrated, and acting as a fierce gatekeeper against the outside world. Bianca's transformation was profound. The woman who once deferred to her husband on every financial decision now spoke of asset freezes and discovery motions with a weary fluency. The baby would kick a strong, insistent thump against her ribs, and she would place a hand on her belly, whispering, "I'm fighting for you. This is all for you." She was no longer just a victim of Ethan's story. She was the author of his consequences. The first domino fell on a sunny afternoon a week later. Amelia burst into the house, her own phone held out her face, alight with grim victory. "You are not going to believe this," she said. On the screen was a shaky cell phone video, already rocketing across local social media. It showed Isabella Rossi at a chic outdoor cafe holding court with a group of equally glamorous friends. In the background, parked brazenly in a loading zone, was the canary yellow Lamborghini. The video captured the exact moment a hulking tow truck pulled up, accompanied by two men in dark suits. Bianca watched mesmerized as the scene unfolded. She saw the disbelief on Isabella's face, the way she stood up and approached the men, her voice an indignant squeak, even on the poor quality audio. One of the men handed her a document. Isabella's confident posture crumbled. Her friends were filming now, their expressions a mixture of shock and schadenfreude. As the tow truck driver hooked the magnificent car, lifting its front wheels off the ground with an indifferent hydraulic whine, Isabella's perfectly constructed world collapsed in public. Her Lambo life was being mowed away as a spectacle of humiliation. Bianca didn't feel joy. She felt a profound, solemn sense of justice. It was the first gear shifting in a great machine of reckoning that she herself had set in motion. Ethan discovered the next gear a few hours later. The call came as Bianca was reviewing documents with Ms. Albright in her office. His name flashed on the screen, and despite everything, her heart gave a painful, reflexive lurch. She took a deep breath, looked at Ms. Albright, who gave her a sharp, encouraging nod, and answered, putting the call on speaker. "What did you do?" The voice that roared from the speaker was almost unrecognizable, stripped of its smooth charm and laced with raw animal panic. Bianca waited a beat, letting his fury echo in the quiet room. "I did what I had to do to protect myself and our child, Ethan," she replied, her voice as calm and cool as the glass wall behind her. "My cards are declined, all of them. My accounts are frozen. They're telling me it's a court order." "You can't do this," he shrieked. "I can, and I did," she said simply. "You should probably talk to your lawyer." "Oh, wait," she paused, delivering the final devastating blow. "You probably can't afford one right now." With a steady hand, she ended the call. The deposition was the final act. It took place in a sterile conference room that felt more like an operating theater. Ethan sat across the vast, polished table, looking like a man who had aged a decade in 2 weeks. His suit was wrinkled, his face was pale and drawn, and the confident swagger was gone, replaced by a sullen, cornered animal resentment. His court-appointed lawyer looked overwhelmed, shuffling papers with nervous hands. This was the first time Bianca had seen him in person since that terrible night. She looked at him, the father of her child, the man she had loved, and felt nothing but a vast, hollow emptiness. He wasn't a monster. He was just a man, a weak, pathetic man, whose greed had consumed him. He looked small. Miss Albright began her questioning, her voice, never rising, her inquiries falling like precisely aimed hammer blows. She laid out the evidence with methodical brutality. "Mr. Vance, I'm showing you Exhibit A, a loan application for $150,000, secured against your marital home. Is this your signature?" "Yes." "And is this your wife's signature, which you attested to witnessing?" He hesitated. "Yes." "Excellent. Now I'm showing you Exhibit B, your marriage license. Please compare the signature of Bianca Vance on the loan document with her legal signature on the license. Are you prepared to state under oath that they were written by the same hand?" Silence. The public defender put his head in his hands. One by one, Ms. Albright dismantled him. The liquidated nest egg, the wire transfer to Vantage Bay Lamborghini, the credit card statements that read like a travelogue of his affair. He was trapped in a web of his own documented lies. Faced with irrefutable evidence of felony fraud and the prospect of criminal charges, Ethan had no choice but to surrender. The settlement wasn't a negotiation. It was a capitulation. In that same sterile room, Bianca watched as he signed away his entire life. The house was hers, free and clear, once the fraudulent lien was removed. His 401k, what was left of their shared assets, all of it. He was left with his clothes, his crushing debt, and an impending investigation by the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority that would be the death knell of his career. The scraping sound of his pen on the paper was the final quiet sound of their life together, ending. Months later, the house was quiet. The late afternoon sun streamed into a small upstairs room, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. Bianca, her belly, a perfect round globe, dipped a roller into a tray of soft yellow paint. She had chosen the color deliberately. It was no longer the color of betrayal of a garish supercar built for a stranger. It was the color of sunlight, of new beginnings. It was the color of her son's nursery. As she painted, she felt a profound sense of peace. The legal battles were over. The house, every stud and floorboard, was hers, a sanctuary she had fought for and won. She ran a hand over her belly, feeling the strong, reassuring kick from within. This child would be born into a home of strength, not deceit. The life ahead would be challenging, but it would be honest, and it would be hers. She had lost a husband, but in the wreckage, she had discovered a resilience she never knew she possessed. She wasn't Ethan Vance's wife or his victim anymore. She was Bianca, a survivor, and she was ready to be a mother. In the end, a Lamborghini is just metal, leather, and wire. It has no loyalty, no love, no conscience. It's a symbol, and for Ethan it symbolized a desperate escape from reality. But for Bianca, it became the catalyst that revealed a truth she may never have otherwise seen. Her story is a heartbreaking reminder that the deepest betrayals often aren't loud, explosive arguments. They are the quiet, calculated clicks of a wire transfer, the signing of a document, the choice to buy a trophy for a stranger instead of building a future with family. Bianca's journey from a bus stop of despair to a courtroom of justice shows the incredible power of a woman who, when pushed to the absolute limit, discovers her own unbreakable strength. She didn't just win a legal battle. She won back her life. If Bianca's story moved you, please hit that like button to show your support for her resilience. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded of their own inner strength. And don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss our next real-life drama. Thank you for listening.